Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. I apologize for taking a few weeks off. I don't know how long it's been. It's been a while since I made a video, but I got a couple topics I want to talk to you guys about as I sit here in my kitchen. And I'm recording this on the Fuji X-Z5 with just a 16mm f2.8, and I'm just using a standard color profile. So reference that because I'm going to mess around with this camera in a second as we switch in this video. But I received a person I know, just to keep the anonymous, was interested in shooting some sports photography. And of course they brought out their older DSLR with the kit zoom lens, the like telephoto one. So like an older Nikon APS-C DSLR. And then they had, I think, like the regular, I don't know what it is, a 55 to 250 or 55 to 200, but with the variable aperture like f3.5 to 5.6 or 6.3. I don't even know what the lens is. And they were taking some pictures and they wanted to, inquire and start asking me about like, why are my pictures too dark? Why are they blurry? All the different things, shutter speed, ISO, how metering works on a hockey rink, all that kind of stuff, because ice is white and cameras want to turn white to gray, all that kind of stuff. And so, at some point I let her borrow my Nikon, and I gave her the 70 to 180 f2.8 lens that I have. I also had at the point like an f-mount 70 to 200 FLED lens, which is a really good lens as well. Long story short, they loved it. They loved the performance. Obviously loved shooting through a mirrorless so they could see their exposure. The autofocus tracking was great, and overall the results were better. And part of that was because I helped set up the settings the proper way, but also some of it's the gear, right? And so the question naturally came back of like, well, I want to upgrade my camera. What should I do? And so you start looking around, and when explaining that conversation, it's like, well, camera bodies are not as important. What is important is the lens. So you start looking at lenses, and lenses could be $2,000 or whatever. And so we start having a conversation, all sorts of different things about APS-C versus micro four thirds versus full frame, all that stuff. And what I came to, or what I kind of realized in this, is that because of where companies are putting their R&D and their research, and where consumers are buying, and where there's the most competition, kind of like this free market thing, the best value that you can get right now, I think, now of course there'll be some outliers in here, is in full frame. Now, I'm not saying this is like to be some kind of full frame snob. Obviously, you guys know that I love Fuji. I'm shooting Fuji right now. You guys know that I love micro four thirds. I'm a big Olympus fan. But I think if I had to stop somebody right now that was interested in shooting portraits or sports and give them a recommendation, I think I'd have to point them to full frame. And here's why, especially right now, this time of year in December, as a lot of these camera companies are having their deals, even with tariffs and everything else that people are saying making cameras more expensive. Right now is a great time. I'm gonna pull up an ad right now that I got yesterday from Nikon, their refurbished section, okay? So I asked this person, I said, give me a good budget, and they said $1,000. Trying to buy a good camera with good autofocus, mirrorless, and a good lens that can shoot indoor sports that are fast. That's important because hockey rinks are sometimes dimly lit, kids are moving faster, you need good autofocus tracking, and you need to be able to shoot with wider apertures or have a camera that can sustain higher ISOs, okay? I got this advertisement from Nikon on the refurbished sale, and they have Nikon Z5 bodies right now on clearance, refurbished of course, for $459. I thought to myself, there's no way any camera company is beating that deal. It is a full frame camera with good straight out of the box color science. It's the D750 sensor, which I think takes great images. It is full frame. Did I say that already? It has good autofocus. Now, maybe it's not as good as like the latest and greatest, but like that version of Z5, by the time it was all said and done, the latest firmware updates had good enough autofocus for sure. I think so. It's 2 card slots. It's weather sealed. It's got a good battery in it. It's the same battery that sits in all the other Nikon Z mirrorless cameras. It's got a nice viewfinder on it. I just thought to myself, I don't think you can beat that value. I think if you even went and looked at like Olympus, and they're trying to like clear off their EM10 Mark IVs, which is a far inferior camera in every respect, build quality, SD card slots, battery life, sensor size, whatever. That's not $459. Now, maybe it's not refurbished, but my point is, that's an incredible deal for $459. that I would say if anybody's going to get into photography and they want to kind of just get to a good point where they can sit with the camera for a long time and do good work with it, outside of like crazy needs where they're shooting, 30 frames per second, or where maybe they're, shooting like high bitrate video, like maybe that's not the camera for them. But for 99% of people that want to get beyond their smartphone and are willing to carry a camera, how do you not recommend this deal that's on this refurbished deal for Nikon right now, the Z5 for $459? That's a tremendous deal. And then you start looking into lenses, right? And so if you get into like, I don't know, the 28 millimeter, 40 millimeter pancakes, again, maybe not their top tier glass, but still good enough glass. Those lenses are on sale right now for like a couple $100. And then I thought to myself, well, she wants to shoot sports. One of the best deals right now in terms of modern mirrorless lens mounts with a fast aperture is the Nikon 70-180 f2.8. It's essentially a rebadged Tamron lens, but it's a very good lens. It's f2.8, 70-180 is plenty for an indoor hockey rink. I don't know of any other manufacturer that's offering a constant f2.8 aperture at that level. And so I guess the broader statement is I think full frame right now, because of where things are at and where the innovation's at and where the competition's at, is probably the best value for your money. And Nikon, of the big three, is probably the best value for your money. And case in point is this camera right here. This is the Nikon Z5ii, okay? Now, for me, I like the fact that it went to a flip screen, but again, same thing. This has a good sensor in it. I think the same one that's in the ZF and maybe even the Z6 too, I don't know. It's got 2 card slots for redundancy. It's weather sealed, it's got a big battery, it's got all the same ergonomics controls that the upper cameras have, like the Z6 III and stuff like that, minus the screen, which actually, I would like to have the screen, I won't lie, but I prefer having the mode dial on this side of the camera versus this side. And so I think Nikon right now is doing a really good job to kind of cement themselves in a position to do that, where they are starting to be the best option for people that are interested in getting into photography at a good price point. I'll switch over in a second here. Actually, let's do that. Let's pause the video. I'm going to switch over to Nikon. I'm going to put this in N-Log, and we'll see how that looks. Maybe the Fuji looks way better. I don't know. But I want to talk a bit about Nikon's value proposition versus Canon and Sony, and then also even Fuji, which I'm shooting on right now. So let's pause this, and I'll kick back over to this Nikon. All right, I think we're back. This is the Nikon Z5ii. I'm on the little cheap 28mm f2.8 SE lens that they have, and I'm shooting an N-Log, so I'm going to try the red LUTs. That's kind of what I'm trying out here. Anyways, so let's talk quick about like value proposition of kind of full frame versus what APS-C's got going on right now, and then even Nikon versus some of the bigger manufacturers. So I'll use my Fuji Xe5 as an example here. This is just a standard silver Xe5. I got the 16 f2.9 here. Now I actually really like this camera. I think just build materials and stuff like that and the way it looks, I prefer this style camera over something like the Nikon Z5ii. But in saying that, the Nikon Z5ii is a superior camera in every which way for the same exact price point, or actually a little bit cheaper. I bought this Nikon Z5ii, I think it was on sale for $1,500, maybe $1,599, I forget the amount, but I think $1,500 sticks in my mind, okay? This Fuji Xe5, I believe is around the $1,600 or $1,700 mark. I'll confirm here as I do post-edit, right? So it's actually more expensive than the Nikon Z5ii. Now you could argue that this camera is more beautiful, and it is. I do totally agree with that. But in just about every way, the camera is largely inferior. The autofocus itself, in terms of photography and even video, is better on the Nikon. The battery is better on the Nikon. This Fuji Xe5 has these little batteries that don't last very long. It is a single card slot camera versus a dual card slot camera. This is not a weather sealed camera. This camera is. The viewfinder is bigger, better, and brighter versus this one, although it is a different style, so maybe to keep the camera compact, they don't have to do that. Overall, the ergonomics for bigger lens choices are better on the Nikon Z5ii. And although you can see yourself, you have to go to this, which is totally usable, but if you put a microphone on top or any other kind of accessory, it blocks this screen, so that becomes a bit of a problem. And I would just tell you, like, Nikon straight out of camera colors are maybe not quite as good as Fuji, but you can now add custom recipes through the Nikon imaging cloud into your camera, and I've got 2 good ones that I was sent to me from a buddy of mine that I think look excellent. They're as good as, if not better than, some of the Fuji colors that I'm getting. So I'm real happy with that. Now, my only caveat is that I think generally for bopping around everyday carry, I prefer something like this in terms of its overall aesthetic and size. But again, you're getting an inferior camera in most every way relative to the Nikon Z5 II. And it's not to dog Fuji, because I love this camera, for more money. This costs more than that. So I think that's kind of crazy. You can largely go down the Fuji line, because I think Fuji's the best APS-C camera manufacturer out there. The XH2 and XH2S are almost $1,000 more. I think they're $700 more than what the Nikon Z5 II is. Even a Z6 III is the same price as an XH2, I think cheaper than an XH2S. Of course, the X100 Mark VI, which is a fixed camera, maybe not the same conversation. But if you go down the line, it's not until you get into like the X-T30 Mark III or those more, I guess, compact, budget-friendly cameras that you start to see that drop off where all of a sudden the price changes. And I would say that, like, relative to the couple $100 difference, the Z5 II is a far superior camera. Now, I originally started this video about full frame being the budget option, but I'm talking about the Z5 II and the Z5 that's on clearance, a refurbished one, because those are just crazy, crazy deals. And I think even if you look at like what Canon's offering in a similar space, you're talking like something like the R8, right? And I just don't think the R8 isn't remotely close to the same camera as the Z5 II is. I'll just be totally honest with you. Maybe you can find like an older refurbished R6, the original R6. That would probably be something that's more comparable. But the R6 II, I think, is still sitting at $2,000, and the R6 III is coming out, which I think is closer to like, what, $2,700 or something like that. So I don't think Canon's even playing in the same ball game as what the Z5 II is, because I think just on value, Nikon offers more for the same amount of money. And I'm not here to be a Nikon fanboy, but I'm just looking at it objectively. If you want to get something close in the Sony ecosystem, you have to go get into like a Sony a7 III, which is, I don't know how old that camera is now. It's still a great camera, don't get me wrong, but like from a specs perspective and everything else, like that's way back, right? They're on the a7 V, just got announced, which is $2,800, I believe it is. So you want an a7 IV that was on clearance for $2,000. It's still $500 more than this Z5 II, and the same pace as a Z6 III. Now, if you're a Sony shooter in the ecosystem, like, that's a great option, of course. But let's say you want to get something smaller like this. I think, again, full frame versus APS-C, Sony's got the a7C II, and although I don't love that camera the same as I do the XE5 for a couple of reasons, the a7C II, A7C, yeah, C2 I guess I'll say, is, again, a better camera in almost every way. Better battery life, better autofocus, just everything except for maybe color science. And I don't know, I hate the electronic first curtain shutter, but that's just a personal thing. So I think just in general, as you look at the overall ecosystem, or the overall, I guess, competition in the market of cameras, I start to feel like full frame more and more and more is becoming the better budget option, especially if you look for some of those like entry level or mid-tier full frame cameras they've got going on right now, which is a very highly contested space. And they've got lenses now that you can put on there that aren't so big and bulky that you can make your setup much more manageable and smaller. Heck, if you even look at like what Olympus is doing with the Micro Four Thirds or OM systems, an OM1 Mark II, which is a tremendous camera in terms of its like overall build quality and its EVF and its sensor speed and all that kind of stuff. The OM1 Mark II is still $2,000. You want to get into that new awesome lens they have, that 50-200 f2.8, that's like, I don't know how much that lens is, $2,000, $3,000. It's not cheap. It's not cheap at all. You have to go back to an original OM1 Mark I to get a camera that's on the same playing field as like a Z5 II in terms of price. I think that's on sale for like $1,200 right now. So maybe a little bit cheaper than Z5 II. And I would argue that like the OM1 as a camera is a better camera than the Z5 II, except for outside the fact that you're shooting a Micro Four Thirds sensor versus a full frame sensor. And for some people that's gonna matter. So hopefully I made my point here, but I just think if you're somebody this Christmas right now looking for a camera, if you're still in the window of which I've released this video, the Z5 refurbished is an amazing offer. You can't, for incredible deal. Incredible deal. And I would probably tell you that if you look for like a generation old or maybe like the mid-tier competitive spot on full frame, that's probably the best bet to go right now. I got to be honest with you. Fuji's continually inflated their prices. Olympus has gone to a specialist kind of thing where they're shooting for for wildlife with the OM1 Mark II, and they're kind of expensive. And it's the OM5 Mark II and stuff, like the build quality is not there. If you want to get something more small and compact, Fuji is great, but they're kind of expensive now, like I said. So maybe this is the best way to go. I don't know. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I have more video topics for you coming up, and I'll talk to you in a future video.